The sabotage of Willow Creek's garden. The vegetables were wilting, and no one could figure out why. It wasn't the scorching summer or a broken sprinkler. It was Margaret. As families mourned their shriveled zucchini and seniors puzzled over brittle lettuce, Margaret was busy lecturing the neighborhood about mailbox uniformity. But I knew the truth. She drained my rainwater tank's 10,000 gallons gone overnight. That water wasn't just for my backyard. It sustained the entire Willow Creek community garden, our only source of fresh produce during a brutal drought. My name's Tom, and I'm about to tell you how one woman's petty power trip nearly destroyed our neighborhood and how we fought back. I'm a retired mechanic living on the edge of Willow Creek, a tidy suburban enclave in Ohio with manicured lawns and a homeowners association that feels like a small dictatorship. 5 years ago, when the drought hit, I started tinkering with rainwater collection. The HOA banned lawn watering and limited irrigation to a stingy 2-hour window at dawn. So, I built a system of tanks behind my garage, hidden by a cedar fence. They fed the community garden a few blocks away, where folks like Mrs. Harper grew eggplants the size of footballs, and kids learned to love pulling carrots from the dirt. I never told the HOA. It was my land, my system, and it worked. The garden thrived while the rest of Willow Creek turned to dust. People didn't ask questions, they just enjoyed the bounty. But Margaret, the HOA president, noticed. She had a knack for sniffing out anything that didn't fit her vision of neighborhood perfection. 2 months ago, she cornered me in my driveway, her clipboard practically an extension of her arm. "Tom, your backyard looks green," she said, eyes narrowing. I shrugged, mumbled about good shade, and thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Last Tuesday, I stepped outside with my morning coffee and felt a chill. My tanks, which usually hummed softly when full, were silent. I rushed to check and found the gauges at 0. The main valve's lock was cut clean through. My heart sank. I ran to the garden, where the damage was already clear. Peppers drooped, tomatoes sagged, and Mrs. Harper was wiping tears from her eyes. Kids asked if the plants were sick. Then Margaret rolled up in her HOA-branded golf cart, sunglasses gleaming, acting like she was on a victory lap. I wanted to confront her, but I needed proof. I checked my security cameras, but they didn't cover the tanks. Then I remembered Carl, the retired electrician next door, who'd set up a camera to watch his solar panels. I knocked on his door, explained the situation, and he pulled up the footage. At 1:43 a.m., there was Margaret Hootie, gloves, bolt cutters in hand. She sliced the lock, opened the valve, and watched the water gush into the storm drain. Carl whistled. "That's cold," he said. I just stared, my anger boiling. Who destroys a community's lifeline over a grudge? The garden wasn't just plants. It was where single moms stretched their budgets with fresh kale, where retirees found purpose, where kids learned to care for something bigger than themselves. Margaret hadn't just drained waters to tact our spirit. But I wasn't about to let her win. I spent the next day inspecting the system. Every pipe was intact except that cut lock. I found trampled grass near the fence, a clear sign someone had snuck through. I knew it was Margaret, but I needed to play this smart. I rallied the garden volunteers and explained the truth. The water came from my tanks, not the city. Jaws dropped. They hadn't known how fragile the system was or how one person could ruin it. When I mentioned Margaret, murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. She'd fined a veteran for a crooked flagpole, shut down a kid's bake sale for lacking a permit, and even complained about a widow's tacky wind chimes. People were fed up. I promised to present evidence at the next HOA meeting. The community rallied Mrs. Harper wrote a statement about the garden's role in her therapy after losing her husband. A young dad shared how it cut his grocery bills. Carl burned the footage onto a USB. By Thursday, the meeting room was packed. Margaret opened with her usual spiel about curb appeal, but when she called for new business, I stood. "I have evidence of HOA misconduct," I said, voice steady. She tried to shut me down, citing rules, but I quoted her bylaws back at her. The room went quiet. I plugged in the USB and played the video. Margaret's nighttime sabotage filled the screen. Gasps echoed. A coffee mug hit the floor. Margaret's face turned ghost white, then beet red. She lunged for the laptop, but I blocked her. The board ordered her to sit. I handed out statements, showed permits proving my tanks were legal, and explained how they'd sustained the garden for years without a cent from the HOA. Margaret stammered that the tanks were unsightly. I pointed out they were hidden. She claimed I was running an illegal water racket. I showed the city permits. Finally, she snapped, yelling that she was protecting property values. That's when Ellen, a soft-spoken librarian who'd helped found the HOA, stood up. Margaret, a neighborhood isn't just property, it's people. You've punished kindness for too long. The room erupted in slow, deliberate applause. The board voted unanimously to suspend Margaret pending an investigation. She stormed out, snarling, "This isn't over." I smiled. "It's not," I said. The next day, a city inspector arrived, tipped off by an anonymous complaint Margaret's doing, no doubt. She'd accused me of stealing public water. I showed him my permits, schematics, and the video stills of Margaret's sabotage. He smirked, sipped the coffee I offered, and said he'd seen HOA tyrants before. His report cleared me, but it uncovered something bigger. Margaret had illegally tapped the HOA's maintenance line to water her rose garden. The city had photos, a report, and a list of violations that would bury her. The story exploded. Local news ran headlines. HOA president caught stealing water during drought. The garden became a symbol of hope. Volunteers poured in, donating soil, seeds, and even a new pump. A nonprofit offered legal support, and the story went viral. Margaret fought back, sending frantic emails and filing complaints, but the board distanced itself. Some members resigned in shame. Then came a surprise visitor, Clara Thompson, a retired city councilwoman who'd championed urban gardens. She'd been tracking my system for a grant program and wanted to testify in a city lawsuit against Margaret for tampering with resources during a drought emergency. The courtroom was standing room only. Margaret's defense unraveled as evidence piled up. The video, her email plotting the sabotage, and a forged document claiming a leaky valve. The judge fined her, banned her from HOA roles for 5 years, and ordered community service. The room cheered. The garden came back stronger. A rare downpour refilled the tanks, and volunteers expanded the plots. The city awarded us a grant for more tanks and a solar pump. Kids from the local school started visiting to learn about sustainability. One morning, as we installed new signs, a city truck pulled up. Out stepped Margaret in a neon vest, assigned to weed the very garden she'd tried to kill. No one spoke. I handed her a trowel and walked away. At the garden's reopening, we celebrated with lemonade and music. A new plaque read, "Nurtured by unity, strengthened by struggle." My name was on it, but I didn't want the spotlight. I took the mic and said, "Thank you for believing in something small. Sometimes, it takes losing water to see how deep the roots are." A kid shouted about a ripe tomato, and everyone laughed. The garden was alive, and Margaret's reign was over. What do you think about Margaret's actions? Have you ever faced someone abusing power in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about standing up to injustice and what it takes to rebuild trust. Your voice matters.